Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Tech Leaders Unplugged. And I am joined today by my fellow teammate and co host, Wade Erickson. Hi,
Hello,
Wade.
hello.
And of course, we're going to be also joined by our guest, Pierce Healy, the CEO and founder of Zelta AI. So, welcome both of you to the show. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Wade and Carlos.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure, Wade. I'm sorry, Pierce. So, all right. So let's start with you, Pierce. Let's start with you telling us a little bit about you. Tell about your background, how you got here, anything you want to say about yourself. Now's your time to shine. Welcome to the show once again.
Yeah, no, fantastic to be here. So I guess quick line on Zelta, and I can kind of bridge that into Pierce. So CEO of Zelta AI, we help software companies to organize and analyze customer feedback data. And so specifically what this means is we're pulling in data from a variety of different customer channels. So sales and success calls, support tickets, social media, and then basically automatically pulling insights out of that data for product sales and customer success. And so really where this comes from, but before starting Zelta, I was a customer strategy consultant with McKinsey and Deloitte, helping companies for years to try and organize customer feedback through the different channels. And really, for the entire time in that role, saw how incredibly manual and siloed that data collection exercise was. And a lot of companies, really, it's almost word of mouth is trusted to understand kind of what the top customer priorities were. And really, it's only kind of been a solution to this problem has only really been possible in the last year, I would say, with the advances in AI. The data that you're working with in this realm is extremely unstructured. So call transcripts, things like that are very difficult to deal with. And it's only kind of since the launch, I guess, of the LLMs that we've had a possible solution. So that was the starting point for Zelta about 14 months ago. And we've been had some really great excitement from customers about the product we're building.
Awesome. Thank you so much again, Pierce. So now let's move on to the topic as chosen by you. We're going to be talking about AI co-pilots, I believe, autonomous engineering. So we're going to be discussing accelerating software development and enhancing customer focus with AI. And this is talk about an exciting and timely topic for today's day and age, right? So let's continue with that. Tell us why you chose this particular topic. Why did you feel, this is relevant for today's day and age? Tell us from your perspective, why did you choose it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Carlos, Wade, keep me honest here from going into too much detail. But as a company building a product on top of large language models like OpenAI, we've also embraced them internally from the perspective of code generation. So a lot of people know about the use cases of OpenAI when it comes to, write me a better email or, draft me this marketing content. Maybe less appreciation for how good it actually is at writing code. It's definitely started to become something that a lot of engineers rely on. And I think as a company, we have really just completely embraced this to its fullest extent. I think anybody who is on tech Twitter knows that, last week we saw these videos of people drawing a website, uploading it to ChatGPT and getting working code as an output. And like that's here today. And I think we're only at kind of level one of what that's going to unlock. But there's probably kind of multiple kind of subsets of use cases within that of how you can use this technology. But within Zelta, we've kind of really made an effort to try and use it to its fullest extent. And the productivity benefits are just absolutely enormous. I would say we've increased our speed of software development by 10x easily in the last 6 months from embracing these.
Great. Thank you so much again, Pierce. All right. So before we continue, Wade, I believe you had some questions for our guests, for Pierce.
So very intriguing. You're one of the earliest companies that I've come across that really has been able to leverage this part and put it into a commercial product. So Tell me a little bit about, we have a lot of folks that are in that state. They're programmers, doing things old school, grab a use case from Jira. I mean, a user story from Jira, start coding away, put it in the repository, collaborate between folks. Tell me how you use this kind of code generation capability, and how did that fit into the traditional software development process? Did you basically have a bunch of full stack engineers that just started knocking it out and seeing what they could do and experimenting, or did you kind of build a process around that? Because I think that's somewhat missing in the marketplace on how to leverage these kind of technologies and very disruptively into a Scrum team or something.
Yeah, I think there's three levels to this as far as kind of we've discovered. There's level one, which I would say is kind of like autocomplete, where GitHub Copilot is kind of the most used product there, and basically you're typing something out and it can kind of finish the sentence, or it can add a comment at the end. Next level beyond that is actually kind of describing something that you want to build, and it will then actually write the code for you. That's probably kind of what ChatGPT is used for a lot today. If you look at any engineer sitting down who has the is allowed to use it, you'll see them all day long putting things into ChatGPT, and instead of them having to write it out, they might actually know how to do it, but it's just quicker to get ChatGPT to write it. That's probably level two, and then I think level three, which we've started to play around with, which I think I'm very excited about in terms of kind of future capability, is actually embedding the LLM into your code base itself, so that rather than it being something that's written and static and put into code base, it's something which is on the fly writing code based on some input. And really interesting applications there around basically almost a flexible application for the end user, where based on some action, the LLM is going, okay, I should actually write some code on the fly here for the thing that they're trying to do. And we've done some small use cases around that. And I think over the next few years, that's going to become a very big deal for a lot of software products. But internally, I would say that the predominant thing we're doing is all of our engineers are not writing code that they could easily get written by ChatGPT. It's also probably allowed, like we're a 9-person company. Out of that, 5 are engineers. The other 4 of us non-engineers are actually essentially becoming engineers, because we can write things that we want to do in the ChatGPT, use that either kind of locally to try and test something out as R&D, or even actually put that into the code base. So I'd say it's a combination of basically 10xing the productivity of existing engineers and actually giving everybody the ability to become an engineer.
That is very intriguing. Are you finding that learning curve so I would imagine the engineers, like you said, it's synonymous with grabbing stuff out of a code library, pulling it into yours, tweaking it, making it changes. This is just generating it based on your prompts. Tell me a little bit about how you see this. Some call it citizen development, low code, no code, but this is really code, but you didn't write it code. What's the learning curve? I mean, what is some of the background that you think the people need to be able to transition into a AI supported software engineer versus a traditional full stack that's just using this as a tool, bringing it in, and like you said, tweaking it, inserting it into the code base, and it becomes static code at that base? Just kind of what type of a person do you think would be a good fit for that?
I think understanding the fundamentals, of course, makes it substantially easier, because you can kind of do a little bit of debugging yourself and kind of understand what you should be asking, say, ChatGPT, in terms of kind of, applicable language. But really, I genuinely believe that anyone can do this. If you're willing to just sit down, you have curiosity, you're willing to keep going. I think anybody could sit down and just start doing this. Your first question to ChatGPT could be like, I want to build a product. What do I need to download? And it will tell you, download VS Code, or download or open up a Google Colab notebook, right? Okay, I'm in Google Colab. What do I do next? It's really end to end. I think anyone who's curious enough and has the willingness to get stuck in can start using this.
Where do you see there's a lot of discussion around company privacy data, IP, intellectual property, stuff getting into these public AI engines. Obviously, you're prompting it and it's spitting code out. So that's kind of the reverse. You're getting information more so than pushing in. Unless I think there is going to be a time where people drop in chunks of code modules and say, write a better version of this code module, and then have it come out and it'll optimize things. So what do you kind of see how Zelta fits into this? You're now obviously an aggregator of customer feed information, and then using AI to parse all of that and make some better sense of it all. Where do you see Zelta? Do you see yourself champion these kind of development processes well alongside of your product or service, or spinning something out separately, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, for me, so like the impact of this on the software industry is obviously going to be radical. I mean, it already is, but a couple of years down the line, who knows how the landscape looks with this technology, like enabling teams to 10x their engineering capacity. What it's going to do is, first of all, allow very small teams to release very sophisticated products in a short amount of time, which is going to flood the market with new software products. It's also going to allow bigger companies to operate with significantly less engineers. It's going to remove the probably like 15-year bottleneck that software companies faced around engineering capacity, where today any software company's ability to move faster is really very firmly linked to how much engineering capacity and how much engineering ability they have. That's going to go away. And if those two things happen, so if we have a flood in the market of new products and new software companies popping up overnight, and we also have these bigger companies who can just move lightning fast on any new thing they want to build, the competitive edge is going to have to move somewhere else, right? If it's not engineering capacity, what else is it going to be? For us, it's going to be basically making good decisions. So GPT can write the code, but it can't tell you that what you're writing is a good idea. You still need to do the thinking around, okay, we're building a good product here for what the end user's use case is. We're responding to their needs very quickly. And for us, basically, that's going to create a much higher emphasis on products like Zelta, where it's creating this live understanding of customer needs and giving you the ability to quickly act on those based on this kind of infinite engineering capacity you might have.
I have got a question for you, Pierce, if I may, Wade.
Sure.
So, okay. Again, from the user perspective, my question is from the user perspective, and as someone who is also linked, very closely tied to the sales, the marketing space. My question is, in terms of adoption, because I see that if you look out there is a very broad spectrum of possibilities and tools and choices, right? So there's a lot of effervescence about what needs to happen, especially with the advent of AI and all that, right? So, but my question is, in terms of adoption, what has been the greatest challenge for you, for Zelta, as a young company, to overcome? Or what do you need to overcome in terms of standing out against the noise or the multitude of options? So what's your greatest challenge in terms of adoption?
I mean, I think on that question, nothing's really changed. It's just about being extremely focused on what your customer and user needs are, right? Adding more companies to the mix doesn't change that. The companies that win are still going to be the ones that basically build the best product for the problem you're trying to solve. And I think that's still a hard challenge. And adding say more competition doesn't necessarily make that any easier, any more difficult. So I would say from our perspective, that's still a journey that we're on, but we've definitely made great strides, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Back to you, Wade.
Yeah, I see a question that came in from Nick. I think it's really pertinent. Talks about the impact on the designer. Obviously, a lot of to just pose a whole question and expect a whole system to be built we're not there yet, obviously. But the question was, what's the impact on the designer, especially designers that can code? How have and we talked about that the not educated and experienced engineer can play a role in getting this code generated. How do you see that transition between the designer, who's typically a UX UI guy or girl, and then how that shows up in basically a prototype almost for the full engineering team? Can you talk a little bit about what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so it's funny. We actually find that right now the code generation is better for back end work than front end. I think the front end devs are safer for the moment in terms of kind of GPT's not as good at understanding styling and designs. I've no doubt in the near future that you're going to be turning a Figma into working code in one click. I mean, that just seems like an obvious near-term possibility. So designers are going to be massively up-leveled by this. They're going to be able to, whether it's in Figma or some new application that has this hooked up in the background, they're going to be able to design out frames and have that turned into working code with a click of a button. So it's definitely going to massively improve the lives of designers, I guess, from the perspective of kind of that engineering/design handoff.
Yeah, I can definitely see where it basically extends their value within the overall team, because obviously, like you said, Figma and those other tools, you can get pixel perfect code that comes out of those that drop right in for the UI designers, and then they start to just add the code that attaches to the back end, and the services back there. So yeah, that's what you're finding though, is the back end code generation, which is obviously a lot of the heavy lifting is back there. Yeah, what's interesting, Logigear is a offshoring company. All our people are in Asia, and we do that just like you said. It's because of the challenge of not only finding resources but the cost. Sometimes there's just not enough budget, and you got too much work to do, and you need to offshore and look at some lower cost locations for finding folks. How do you see this impacting that whole industry, nearshoring, offshoring? I mean, obviously they can just grab the tools and be just as fast and still maintain the cost effectiveness, just be more efficient as well. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, near term, what they're probably going to do is offer the same service at the same price, but remove 50% of their headcounts. After that, I mean, eventually I'm sure companies are going to have, less need for dev full stop is kind of what we've spoken about. But yeah, for service providers that are able to say, this is our price, this is what you get at the end, massive opportunity for them to use this kind of automation. What I would say though is like the most interesting end state or kind of impact of this technology in this area is actually completely taking the engineer out of the loop of the product. Not in terms of kind of AI writing a product, end to end and itself, but having a more flexible experience for the end user because of the fact we can almost have like a on-the-fly engineer within the application. And I think like the same way that today YouTube and Instagram are almost personalized to me when I log in terms of the content I see, I think that CRMs and ERPs in the future are going to be personalized to the end user. If you only need to see contacts in your CRM, the buttons for everything else will just be removed. They won't be visible to me. So I won't log in and see all this clutter that I have today of all these things that I don't necessarily need to do. It'll be responsive enough to remove those things. And then if I have a chat window and I'm like, hey, I actually want to see XYZ, it'll be able to formulate that on the spot for me. But like get the data, visualize it in kind of flexible ways that maybe the company itself didn't even think about, or carry out any task automatically from there. And that for me is the really, really groundbreaking implication of this, beyond just increasing productivity, is like actually using this as a embedded dynamic code generating part of the product.
Yeah, I would imagine being a testing company that as far as our origins, we are, the demands of AI in software testing is really huge right now. They want to, just like you said, build the code from that handwritten UI screen. The testing tool companies are looking at generating all the test cases and the testing scripts from looking at that finished screen by the programmers so that they can validate that. I'm just wondering how, as these libraries that are generated from AI become refined, it's kind of like a lot of people that use Salesforce. Why test Salesforce? They manage all the code. I'm just using configurations here. But in reality, there is full-on companies that have software testing for past tools where that code is really being pulled in from libraries, and you're doing just almost like a drag and drop for functionality, but still in the end, there's some testing. Do you see any impacts from what you've generated? Did you still have to do significant testing on that code to be able to release the product, whether it's manual testing or automation testing?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's like GPT will almost debug itself. It'll give you something that doesn't work, and then if you prompt it saying that doesn't work, it'll go, oh, I missed X, Y, Z. And so that's still a huge element of working with this. That debugging is essential. There are certain tasks that we've found it's pretty reliable for. An interesting one that we've tried out in beta is having more customized email templates for our users. So instead of us saying, okay, when you click these buttons, this data gets pulled into your automatic email that gets sent out with your notifications, instead of hooking that all up in a kind of a templatized way, is to say, okay, here's the data. This person wants an email about some topic they're interested in. GPT just write the HTML for the email. And that's a kind of a simple example. It's pretty reliable at doing it, but is showing us this window into a scenario where if you consider email to be an interface as a front end, that it's actually being completely written by GPT on the fly for every user, instead of some kind of template that everyone has to subscribe to.
Oh, yeah, I think you're on mute, Carlos.
Yes, I'm sorry. It's just that there was some background noise here, and I need to shut the windows. That's the end. I'm sorry. I apologize. So, well, Pierce. Unfortunately, we're coming up on time, and of course, I wouldn't want to end the conversation without encouraging our viewers to visit Zelta.ai, and so you can see right down below. You'll see a ticker with the address. So go there at just excuse me, Zelta.ai, and you'll find all the info that you want about the company and how to reach, of course, our guest, Pierce. And last but not least, here's Pierce's LinkedIn information. You can also reach out to Pierce right there, write it down, and immediately go ahead and reach out. And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of good communications going forward. So, Pierce, the only thing left for me, again, is thank you for having been with us on the show. And I really look forward to learning about what Zelta is about and how it works and all that. I'm thinking of just giving it a try and hopefully provide you with some raving reviews about the tool and the platform and the solution that you're providing for the space. So thank you for that. Before we go, stay with us as we go off the air. I have a quick announcement, and which is about tomorrow's guest. So tomorrow we're going to be speaking with, with Sam Hillstead, the product marketing manager at SetSale. And the topic is going to be sales superpowers with generative AI, the hidden goldmine, practical generative AI strategies for sales teams. So there you go, Wade. We talk about an interesting and relevant topic for us, right? So we're looking forward to this conversation. And with that being said, again, thank you so much, Pierce, for having been with us on the show. And see you next time right here on Tech Leaders Unplugged.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Absolutely.